Shore's Nest. We're here to welcome Jim McGovern today to evaluate take the first step in evaluating the Deerfield River as a scenic riverway. And I'd like to thank Chris Curtis is here from the Deerfield River Watershed. Thank you. And so grateful to have Diane Mason from our Denise Mason from our planning board. Thank you. And just so grateful. Natalie Blay is here, a representative. So Linda Dunleavy from FERCOG is here. What's that? Yes, you can stand stand next to Jim. You're very close. So this Deerfield River means so much to Deerfield, obviously, and it has been an integral part of this part of the country for forever. But starting off with our indigenous people and moving through our immigrants and settlers, it's been a resource truly for life. And it's how this area began, and up to today with the recreation that goes on here. I can't think of a more beautiful spot to introduce Congressman Jim McGovern. So, thank you.
Thanks, sir. Well, first of all, let me thank Trevor, the members of the select board who are here today. My friend, Representative Natalie Blay, who's a champion for all these types of great initiatives. I want to acknowledge David Carrero, who's here with Senator Markey, who's key in this whole effort. But to everybody, and I think a bunch of people are going to speak here. But I want to begin by recognizing at the start that the town of Deerfield has provided us an incredible location to mark today's announcement. I've spoken at a lot of podiums in my career, but this one is the most spectacular backdrop that I've ever had. So it's wonderful to be with all of you. And of course, we wouldn't be here without the work of the organizations and individuals who made and shaped this effort from the very beginning. I'm particularly appreciative of the work of the Deerfield River Watershed Association and its leadership, especially Chris Curtis, who approached my office with this idea and went to great lengths to garner participation from communities all along the river. And I know that Chris has been working steadily with the Wyndham Regional Commission, and they have been instrumental in building this multi-state coalition. So the best legislative initiatives are inclusive, and they come from the grassroots. So thanks to everyone here and many others, both in Massachusetts and Vermont, we have built a community of advocates who understand that the Deerfield River is special. And again, I mentioned, Senator Markey at the beginning. He's going to be leading the effort that I'm going to be leading in the House. He's going to lead in the Senate. But I also want to thank Congressman Neal and Congressman Welsh, Senator Warren, Senator Leahy, and Senator Sanders. All of them have been supportive of this effort. So today we've gathered to say that it's time to advance a great idea, to add the Deerfield River and its tributaries to the National Wild and Scenic River Systems. The bill that we will be introducing in Washington tomorrow, I'll get on a plane when I leave here and go back to Washington, and we will do this tomorrow, but this bill will begin that process by directing, I'll put this right here, like that, by directing the Department of Interior to conduct a study in coordination with watershed stakeholders on the portions of the river that are eligible for special conservation status. The National Wild and Scenic System was established in 1968 to protect portions of rivers with outstanding natural, cultural, and recreational values for future generations. The creation of the system has been an enormous success, especially because it brings in public participation to develop conservation goals. Anyone who has ever spent time on or around the Deerfield River knows what a treasure it is and what it means to this corner of New England. In fact, the National Park Service has recognized the Deerfield River, listing it in the nationwide rivers inventory as possessing, quote, outstandingly remarkable, end quote, values, and noting its regional significance. Wild and scenic designation for the Deerfield would deliver federal financial and technical assistance to the communities in the watershed who are already dedicated to preserving and protecting this precious resource. This is a river that is beloved by many, and the cooperative spirit that exists here is a model for watersheds everywhere. We now have an opportunity to secure for the river the national recognition that it deserves. This work is part of a bigger picture. Conservation matters. Preserving nature for future generations matters. In 1968, when Congress passed the National Wild and Scenic Rivers Act, it had become abundantly clear that we were at risk of losing our natural spaces. Our rivers were in awful shape, finally reaching a breaking point that inspired the Clean Water Act of 1972. And we've made significant progress since then, but in many ways, the need for conservation has only grown. And right now, in the United States, we lose a football field-sized area of nature to human development every 30 seconds. We have to seize every opportunity we have to conserve the places that matter most to us. If we want to have any chance of leaving the world a little bit better for our children, then conservation must become a national priority. And that won't happen on its own. It will happen because people who care take action and make it happen. And that's why I'm proud to move this idea forward with so many allies who have heeded that call. The designation process for this river will not happen overnight. We're ready to work with the federal government to engage in a cooperative process, one that brings people together to create a shared set of goals for the future of the watershed. And I want to end by again thanking everybody who came today and expressing my gratitude for the advocates who are here to help advance the cause of conservation in our community. And with that, I would like to introduce a tireless champion of this process, who in many ways is responsible for making this possible, Chris Curtis from the Deerfield River Watershed Association.
Thank you, Congressman. It's not every day you get introduced by a congressman, so that's pretty exciting. Welcome, everybody, and thank you for coming out today. It's amazing to see such a great amount of support for this initiative. I want to thank also the town of Deerfield for hosting us here and providing this great setting. I learned to paddle on the Deerfield River many, many years ago, and I'm still out on the river many weekends myself, so it has a special place in my heart, and we're so lucky to have it right here in our own backyards. I'm here on behalf of the Deerfield River Watershed Association, which is a nonprofit environmental organization dedicated to the stewardship, protection, and restoration of one of Massachusetts' most special rivers. Many of my fellow board members, in fact, I think all of my board members are here today. Can you raise your hands, folks? They've been so supportive of this effort and actually came out and cleaned up the site beforehand to make it presentable for today's event. Many years ago, I was watching a special on National Geographic about national wild and scenic rivers, and I noticed that there wasn't a single wild and scenic river designated in Massachusetts at that time. So about 30 years ago, I worked on getting the Westfield River designated as the first national wild and scenic river in Massachusetts. We now have 4 of them in the state, and we feel that the Deerfield River is extremely well qualified to meet this standard and to become a national wild and scenic river. It's a very unique natural and recreational resource that runs 76 miles from southern Vermont through the northwestern Massachusetts hill towns to the Connecticut River. Goes through the Green Mountains, the Berkshire Hills, and a number of historic river valley towns. To be designated under the National Wild and Scenic River System, Congressman mentioned this term earlier, river has to be shown to have what's called outstandingly remarkable features. We always kind of joke about that terminology. But here are a couple of reasons why we think the Deerfield does meet those standards. It offers some of the best whitewater boating and rafting in Massachusetts. It's an excellent trout fishery with some of the best dry fly fishing in the east. The historic Mohawk Trail ran along the river, and this was a principal Native American travel route. Several of the tributaries to the river, including the Cold River, the Bog, and the Gulf Brooks, are completely undammed and free-flowing rivers. And as Congressman McGovern mentioned, many of the segments of the river have already been inventoried under what's called the Nationwide Rivers Inventory, and were found to meet the standards for wild and scenic. At DRWA, our board met in early 2020, and we began our outreach process on this issue in the fall of 2020. And over the past 2 years, we've engaged in a watershed-wide campaign of public outreach to communities, organizations, and businesses to educate and inform folks about this initiative. To date, we have contacted every community in the Deerfield River watershed, and we've secured letters of support for this initiative from 18 of those communities. And those include 7 Vermont communities: Dover, Guilford, Halifax, Marlborough, Stratton, Whitingham, and Wilmington, and 11 Massachusetts communities: Ashfield, Buckland, Charlemont, Coleraine, Conway, Deerfield, Greenfield, Monroe, Rowe, Savoy, and Shelburne. We've also secured letters of support from 12 organizations, agencies, or businesses for this effort, including the Windham Regional Commission, the Berkshire Regional Planning Commission, the Vermont Natural Resources Council, the Green River Watershed Association, the Connecticut River Conservancy, Trout Unlimited, both the Deerfield and Connecticut River chapters, our own DRWA, the Elnu Abenaki Tribe, Franklin Regional Council of Governments, Vermont Agency for Natural Resources, and Crabapple Whitewater Rafting. So one key message that I want to leave you with today is that this is a locally initiated and locally driven effort with strong local support. We've also worked extensively with the offices of our legislative delegation on this effort, and I again want to thank Congressman McGovern and his staff for all the efforts and taking the lead on this initiative. And I want to acknowledge, as he did, the co-sponsorship from Congressman Richard Neal and Peter Welch, and I want to acknowledge the companion Senate bill that's also being filed, thanks to the leadership of Senator Edward Markey, with the co-sponsorship of Elizabeth Warren and Patrick Leahy. In closing, I just want to note and underscore that the filing of today's study bill legislation is only the first step in a pretty long process. Once this bill is passed, federal funding is provided for a locally guided study to determine if the river is eligible, which segments of the river are eligible, and to create a management plan. Then we'd go back to the communities after that process is done and reaffirm their support for designation, and then a second bill has to pass Congress in order to actually get the designation to happen. So the process can take 3 to 5 years. It's a long process. So there's much work ahead of us, but we look forward to working on the great cooperative effort that got us this far, and working with all of you in the years ahead. So thank you so much for your support on this. Next up, I just want to introduce Margot Gia, Natural Resources Planner for the Windham Regional Commission, who has been our Vermont co-sponsors for this effort.
Just about 10 minutes and you got heavy rain west of us.
So good morning. My name is Margot Gia, and I'm a Natural Resources Planner at Windham Regional Commission. And Windham Regional Commission works with 27 towns in southeastern Vermont, and our mission is to assist towns to provide effective local governance and work collaboratively with them to address regional issues. As a bi-state watershed, the Deerfield River and its tributaries are a special resource that unites Massachusetts and Vermont. The river and its tributaries have unique natural habitats, provide recreational opportunities of many types, and is an economic benefit to the communities that the waters flow through. Safeguarding the special characteristics of this watershed is of very high importance. We are pleased to see the Deerfield River and its tributaries nominated to be studied for the Federal Wild and Scenic designation. With this nomination, the cross-border watershed can be studied as a whole and stimulate cross-border communications on the management, protection, and appropriate use and development of the river and its tributaries. So thank you, Congressman McGovern for introducing the Study Act to the Deerfield and to the Deerfield River Watershed Association for bringing attention to this important watershed. We look forward to Vermont and Massachusetts communities working together for the protection of this wonderful resource. So I'd like to take this opportunity now to introduce our next speaker. It's Linda Dunlavey, the Executive Director of the Franklin Regional Council of Governments.
Hi. I'll be really short because my hair can tell you it's about to rain. The COG is really supportive of the Deerfield River getting this designation. We've been studying the Deerfield River Watershed Association for over a decade, since Tropical Storm Irene. We look forward to sharing our knowledge of fluvial geomorphology and climate-resilient watershed management practices during the next phase of this process. And I just need to quickly say that you get points at the COG if you can include fluvial geomorphology in a sentence correctly. So thanks for the opportunity. Really appreciate it. Thanks to the Deerfield River Watershed Association, especially Chris Curtis, and to Congressman McGovern and Senator Markey for supporting this. It's really a treasure to Franklin County. Thank you. Oh, and Mike Vito. Now Mike Vito, past president of the Deerfield River Watershed chapter of Trout Unlimited.
Very good.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, everyone. I'm pretty much going to cut this short, given that we're going to have some rain coming. But on behalf of our... Okay.
That's not thunder.
Thank you for that. Our chapter has really been very supportive of this initiative when it first came to us. It really goes hand in hand with our overall mission and our overall goals. Trout Unlimited is about wild fish, not stockfish, wild fish. And we've proven that there are naturally reproducing brown trout up on the upper section in the Fife Brook section. We're trying to enhance that now. Initially, we got pushback from Mass Fish and Wildlife, who said there's no way because of the hydro peaking that happens every day, which is going from 125 CFS, cubic feet per second minimum, to up to 1,000 in just a matter of minutes. It would be impossible. Well, we proved them wrong, and now we're working with Mass Fish and Wildlife to help create, eventually, a wild trout management area, which would be the very first in all of Massachusetts. With wild fish come anglers from all over the area, not just Massachusetts. We're already getting people, because of the Deerfield's reputation for its wild trout, coming from different parts of mostly the east, but we hope to expand that a little bit. Our work has got us the Gold Trout Award in 2018 from TU National. And we've done a lot of different studies since. I would like to name that we've also teamed up with the U.S. Geological Surveys, the Conti Research Laboratory up in Shutesbury. We conducted a 2-year study of brown trout. We put transmitters in them, tracked them, and we're trying to see if the daily hydro peaking has an impact on those fish, especially during spawning. They could be driving, when the water comes down, driving the fish away. We've proven that that's happened to an extent. So also we're going to be announcing soon that the Deerfield has been named a priority waters by TU National. It's a new initiative to give major river systems more resources. We're working on that with them right now, and as soon as we have more information about it, we're going to let everybody know. More resources is good. So again, just want to thank everyone, especially my old friend, Congressman McGovern. Chris, for the work you're doing. I mean, we know this is a long process, and thank you for picking this up. We're certainly going to do our best to make it all worth it. And thank you to Senator Markey for his leadership on the Senate side and all the other members of Congress. So thank you all very much.
So let me thank Deerfield Police Chief John Pachoric for keeping us safe on the bridge here, but also keeping us up to date on what the weather's about to, what's about to happen with the weather. Let me just thank everybody here again for all of your support. This is about conservation, which, as I've said, is incredibly important. It's also about recreation, as we just heard. And it's about making communities like Deerfield a destination point for people from not only all over New England, but all over the country. This is an incredible community. This river is an incredible treasure, and I'm confident that it will end up with the result we all want. We just get this bill, first step of a two-step process done. We will do that. I will take care of it in the House. If we have to attach it to something, that is a must-pass piece of legislation, but we will get this done, and then we will get this study going, and then we will get this designation, which will enable us to have access to a whole bunch of federal money, not only for conservation management, but also for recreation. All of this is incredibly important. Again, to the town of Deerfield, thank you for your leadership, Chris. Thank you to all the partners that are here. I am very, very, very grateful. And look, with all the sometimes depressing news that we see on television or read about in the newspapers, this is something to be hopeful about, and something really quite extraordinary. And again, thank you to everybody for being here, and I think it's just about to start to rain. So thank you. I'm told that if I jump off here,